Warm greetings and welcome to the CNSS podcast. I'm your host, Balasubramanian, Senior Research Officer and Head of India Strategic Studies Program at Center for National Security Studies. Today, we are in conversation with Lieutenant General S.L. Narasimhan, former Director General of Center for Contemporary China Studies and former member of the National Security Advisory Board. He is also an avid China watcher with over 2 decades of experience. In this episode, we'll explore key topics such as India-China disengagement, the Indo-Pacific strategy, the upcoming US elections and their potential impact on China-India relations, among others. Let's engage in this insightful discussion with General to deepen our understanding of these crucial issues. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us. In today's podcast, my first question is, sir, how do you look at the present status of India-China ties? How should we read it? Especially after the 31st Border Affairs meeting to resolve the standoff at LAC, which has actually entered its 4th year and still ongoing. When we look at the recent reports, it indicates that the phrase narrow down the differences was actually used for the first time in the bilateral talks. Does it signal some progress in the negotiations, sir?
Bala, good evening and thanks for getting me on this podcast. The present state of India-China relations should be seen as something different from what was existing before 2020. In the last 4 years, of course, since the Galwan incident, many things have happened. As you said, the working mechanism for control and coordination, the WMCC meetings that have been happening. 21 rounds of core commander level talks have happened. So what has been achieved in these meetings is that the 4 areas where the incidents took place in 2020, that is Galwan, Patrolling Point 15, Patrolling Point 17 and the Lake Pankungso, the northern bank. In all these areas, disengagement has taken place. So to that extent, some progress has been made. We had set out a 3-step process at that point in time to resolve this Galwan incident issue. First one was disengagement, second one was de-escalation and third one was de-induction. And both the sides to come to an understanding that either of us will not change the status quo unilaterally. So we are still stuck at the first stage and 2 more points are under discussion, which is open secret anyway. One is in the area of Depsan, the other one is in the area of Demchok. So once these things get resolved over a period of time, then we need to think of step 2, which is de-escalation. So that is going to take some time. So to that extent, I would say the phrase that has come up into use in the recent past, that the state of the border will determine the state of the bilateral relationship, I think it holds true. A lot of reports have come up regarding the recent WMCC meeting, wherein people say that some progress could have been made. This is all at the moment a conjecture. We don't know exactly what happened during that meeting. And should something come up positive, in any case good for both of us. But to my way of thinking, this is going to be a major issue that needs to be resolved before we get on to other issues of the relationship. On the economic relationship, you will always hear that there is a large trade deficit and that is affecting the bilateral relationship. You will invariably find that Indian industry is dependent on China for a few things and that they have to import. There is no option. To that extent, I think this trade deficit will continue to be till the time we create those manufacturing capabilities within our country. So, on both the fronts, you will have this issue. There have also been, expectations that Mr. Modi and Mr. Xi Jinping have to meet to resolve this, etc. But I think that is a thing that is best left to the government, where they understand far better what the Chinese stance is. It is one thing that we may expect Mr. Modi to go and talk to Mr. Xi Jinping, but we are not very sure what the state of Mr. Xi Jinping is. So that I think we should leave it to the government to take a call on it so that they understand these things far better than any of us who are outside the government at this point in time.
Thank you, General. We have set the stage because my next question was supposed to be on the likely possibility of meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping. Both of them are likely to attend the upcoming BRICS summit, which is set to happen in Russia between October 22nd to 24. And subsequently after that, you also have the G20 summit, which is set to happen in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, between November 18 to 19. So this also, as you mentioned, it provides an opportunity for exploring the possibility of the meeting between the two leaders on the sidelines. But my question is, do you think economic ties will be high on the Chinese agenda with India, considering a lot has happened in this space regarding FDI investments, etc. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
See, this FDI investment that you're talking about, I think you're talking about what was made in the economic survey, which came out just before the full budget was announced. See, if you read that entire paragraph, people have taken this line and then kept writing a lot of things about it. But if you read that entire paragraph in that economic survey, what it says is that we have to build up the manufacturing capability within the country. And the present trade deficit is basically because we are not able to manufacture those things. So to that extent, the suggestion was that Chinese should be allowed to come and do the manufacturing here, so that we also get the technology and everything to do the manufacturing and slowly, gradually reduce the dependency on China. I have only one observation on this, that we have allowed Huawei to come, we have allowed Oppo to come, we have allowed Realme to come, and we have allowed many of these. Sani construction company, that's in a big way here in India. I think what we need to look into is whether we have been able to acquire any kind of technology from them, transfer of technology, or whether they have been able to transfer the manufacturing here. What was the content of parts which came from China initially? How much of indigenization we have been able to do locally? I think we need to look at these things and then take a call. If here things have not happened in a manner that we wanted, I would say that it will not be fair to think that it will happen now. So we need to be cautious on this. While the idea may be welcome to people, but I think we need to be a bit cautious on this. And on the second aspect of Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Modi meeting, that I answered in the first question itself. I think it is better left to the government to take a call and decide as to how they need to progress on this. You would recall that in the G20 meeting in Bali earlier, they had a brief meeting, and after that I don't think they have met anywhere much. So that is something that I think we need to leave it to the present government.
If I'm a little bit, as a supplementary, if I may take you to, our External Affairs Minister, he famously, pronounced the 3 mutuals and 8 principles. Can you little bit touch on that aspect? Because he set the stage between, India-China ties.
Correct. The 8 point that he mentioned, I think he talked about it in 2021 in the ICS conference that he did. But the 3 mutuals he has been always saying, the mutual respect, mutual sensitivity and mutual interest is what he has been saying. That only indicates that the Chinese have not been catering for our interest, and also they have not respected our concerns and sensitivities. Where did this come from? Like, for example, if you take your mind back, when CPEC was announced, I'm sure people raised it with the Chinese to say that this is passing through our territory. The obvious response we always got in many of the meetings that we had is that we understand your position, but Pakistan needs the help, and so we will continue to go. Which implies that they didn't respect our sentiments of the territory, etc. And they also did not cater for our interest. That is from where it comes, mutual sensitivity, mutual respect, and mutual that it comes from that particular context. And after that also, when Galwan happened, when we were sensitive to it and then we kept telling them about these issues, they said, now the border is stable, let us move on the other issue, which implies that when we say that the boundary is still not stabilized. They seem to think it is stabilized, and so we should move on. So these are the issues that are actually brought out on the three mutuals which you talk about. And I think that will be the guiding factor for going ahead also.
So let me now little bit come to the maritime domain. How do you view the developments in the Indian Ocean space? Particularly we had a lot of recent visits of our EM Dr. S. Jaishankar traveling to Maldives, and you have our Indian NSA Ajit Doval traveling to Sri Lanka, and we've also signed an MOU to set up a secretariat for the Colombo Security Conclave. Do you think, or is India taking a strategic approach rather than a tactical preference? Especially, this happens right after what has happened in Bangladesh. So, what are your thoughts on this, sir?
See, the Colombo Security Conference, etc., would have been decided long time ago. If you put the dates in perspective, people who are attending this conference are all high-level officials. So their calendar gets filled up far ahead of time. So to link that with Bangladesh may not be a correct way of looking at it. We always had an interest in the Indian Ocean region. And to the extent that Chinese were sensitive to say that Indian Ocean is not India's ocean. Okay? Our interests are always here. So is the China's interest here, basically because of two issues. One, they have a two nations theory, two oceans theory. One is the Pacific Ocean, the other one is the Indian Ocean. And with South China Sea issue, generally the influence of China getting increased out there, it is only rational to think that they'll extend that reach out into Indian Ocean region at some point in time. As I speak to you today, in the Indian Ocean at any point in time, you have anything between 8 to 11 ships of PLA Navy operating. 3 of them on the way to go to the piracy tasks, 3 of them may be returning, and some other ships may be coming for some other issue. So 8 to 11 ships you can always expect at any point in time. Recently also there was a report that 3 of the research vessels of China were in Bay of Bengal. So we have to actually get used to the increasing Chinese presence in the Indian Ocean. Second thing is, the Chinese aircraft carrier is still getting operational. So once it gets operational, I am sure he'll also show the flag here. Maybe 2027, maybe 2025 or beyond, whatever time it is. We should be prepared. I am sure our Indian Navy is doing a good job of monitoring these issues. So Indian Ocean region is of interest to us, and we will continue to maintain our influence here. And we need to be prepared to face more and more of the PLA Navy operating here. And in the meantime, let me also tell you that the other friendly navies, like for example US Navy and other navies like Japanese Navy, Australian Navy, Indonesian Navy, they also operate here with us. So there is an interoperability that is being built up over a period of time. Recently you would have heard about India and US Coast Guards running an exercise off Andamans, which is the first time it has been done, which is a good precedence for cooperation and collaboration between two of the coast guards. So I think we are in the right direction of maintaining our presence and influence in the Indian Ocean region, being very well aware that Chinese Navy might be operating here more and more, and then keeping that into the metrics. I am sure that we will do what needs to be done to maintain our presence in the Indian Ocean.
In your response, sir, you have made two interesting points. One is regarding China's two ocean theory, Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean. And you also mentioned, Indian Ocean is not India's ocean. So what we as analysts we see is the Indianness of Indian Ocean region is the Chinese trying to, take it away. And in this light, a lot of ridges recently, ridges in the Indian Ocean region was renamed by China based on Chinese musical instrument. How do you see all these moves?
See, Chinese are known to do this renaming business everywhere. They did it in South China Sea, they have done it in Indian Ocean, they have done it in Arunachal Pradesh. So they keep doing this. That doesn't mean anything actually. That is for their consumption that they want to change the name. Let them be my guest. It's okay. But my own point is, on the sovereignty issues, I don't think we are going to make any kind of compromise. I'm very clear on that, and I'm sure my interactions with everybody tells me that. I mean, that is very clear. The other thing is about the Indian Ocean not being India's ocean. That was told by a Chinese military officer about 10-12 years ago. And he made that remark, actually, which is fine. I mean, that is his view. But that doesn't make it any different from what we are operating and how we are looking at the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean is important for us. We have our own priorities and our own importance. We will continue to maintain.
Thank you, sir. My next question is, how would you look at India's NSA Ajit Doval traveling to Moscow, and Russian President Putin has named India among the 3 countries that Russia is in touch with over the Ukraine conflict, because this comes after Prime Minister Modi's visit to Russia and Ukraine in the past 2 months, and he met a lot of met their leaders, including Zelensky and Putin. So there is a consensus that India can play a key role here. Also factoring in the Russia-China strategic ties. How do you look at this? Your thoughts on this, please?
Before I answer that question, you asked me a question earlier regarding our NSA traveling for the Colombo Security Conference. I'm sure this is not the first time that he has gone. He has been there earlier also. And so this must be treated as one of the kind of our commitment to the Colombo Security Conference, which is being met. I think that is the way we should see this. And we give importance to such kind of organizations, and so that is how we have signed on that memorandum of understanding for creating a headquarter for that particular place. Now coming on to your question regarding the NSA going to Russia and India among the other countries. Other 2 countries I think is China and Brazil, is what has been talked about. So the thing is, firstly, we are all part of the BRICS, as you know it. Second thing is, we have our own relationship with Russia, and we have also good relationship with Ukraine, and that is the reason why Mr. Modi made trip one after the other to Russia as well as to Ukraine. And right from the beginning of this Russia-Ukraine conflict, we have maintained a stable position to say that war is not the way to come to a conclusion on anything. We need to start talking. Second, we are against all humanitarian violations that were taking place. In fact, in Sunni, when these things happened, we voted against the Russians in the UN. Whereas in other things we abstained, basically because it is very difficult to take a side on these issues. And so we had 20,000 odd people in Ukraine who were studying and other things. We need to take them out. We had other issues to be dealt with. And so we took a position keeping in mind our national interest and our people's interest. So that is the way we see it, and that is what is our strategic autonomy is all about. The thing is that these are all multilateral meetings that are taking place, and so for that people have to go. There's no, and so I don't think we need to read too much into this, because of in a multilateral setting, I'm sure there are meetings taking place on the sidelines of these multilateral meetings, which will happen here also. But the fact remains that I don't think we need to attach kind of expectations or attachment. Let them take their own course. They have their own agenda to discuss, and I am sure that is the way it is.
Thank you very much, sir. My last question will be, to conclude, everyone today is closely watching the November elections in the US. How do you think the outcomes of the elections will, tend to shape the US-China ties, and how do you think this will affect India?
Okay. That's a question which is on everybody's mind these days. To answer this question, I would request you to take your mind back to 2005. That is the first time when we signed that defense cooperation agreement with the US, and thereafter we got a waiver for the nuclear thing, that 023 agreement that we had for the waiver. And in the last about 15 odd years, we have imported approximately about $20 billion worth of equipment from the US. This relationship with the US has been growing, irrespective of whether the Democrats are in power or the Republicans are in power. And so there is a bipartisan kind of understanding in US that India is a valuable strategic partner, and this relationship needs to be taken forward. So to my way of thinking, whether Mrs. Harris comes into power or Mr. Trump comes to power, I think the relationship with India will continue to improve between India and the US. That is how I see this.
Thank you very much, sir, once again, and please accept my sincere thanks and gratitude for taking time to be with us and for this invaluable insights that you have shared. Until next time, Jai Hind, thank you.